Today I'm interviewing Jason Wahler. He's from Southern California, and you might know him from shows such as the Laguna Beach show, The Hills, Celebrity Rehab, and other shows with Dr. Drew. And he's had a very public struggle with addiction, but he's here to talk with me today about how he's overcome addiction and how he's here to help other people. Welcome, and thank you for being here today.
Of course, thank you for having me.
So I kind of want to start with the worst things that people have said about you, and kind of when you were at rock bottom. When you became a reality star, you were kind of known as a bad boy, and the press always said the worst things about you. What were the worst things that you ever heard someone say about you?
I mean, I think a lot of it was just I don't know how bad it necessarily was. I think it was more of like just the over partying, you know, just womanizing in a sense. I mean, I think that's just how the character was created on TV. I really do believe that, and I think when I was going through the thick of it, people gave it an opportunity to really kind of elaborate on that. So, but I would say in the category of just being a jerk or an a-hole.
Looking at that from the outside, it's so difficult to sympathize, because it's like, hey, this person has everything. They're partying, they're driving around in a nice car. I don't feel bad for this person. What do you have to say about addiction and depression and mental illness and the whole situation?
It's a disease, period. I mean, people need to understand that you can, and that's something I had that access to. My point of is you don't have to be a guy that's got a brown bag and you're under the bridge. It doesn't matter if you have $1 million in the bank and you're living life. You know what I mean? There's still the element of addiction. Success almost makes it worse because you can justify for your disease. Oh, I have this, I have that, so I don't really have that big of an issue. And in reality, that's not the case.
Yeah. When did you know that you hit rock bottom?
I mean, there were so many different elements to my rock bottom, but I mean, there's an example I can give, where I really saw things were an issue, but I mean, I was still so blinded by it. I mean, today looking back, I reflect on, I was the guy that would have 100 people over at his house, and I'd be in the bathroom by myself, drinking straight from a bottle of vodka, snorting cocaine, and walk out with a beer and pretend everything was okay. And in reality, on the outside, people thought my life was perfect. He had the fame, the money, the access, the cars, the girls, but in reality, I didn't even want to be around. I was trying to escape reality on a daily basis. It became a way of survival for me.
So what were the factors that led to your addiction?
Well, for me, I personally believe, addiction is a disease. I was born with it. I think the entertainment business and stuff, it was not a cause of my addiction. It wasn't any part of that. It just added fuel to the fire. I'm a firm believer, Drew kind of touched on that very closely. It would have been an ongoing thing, as I got older. If I were to go to college and do a totally different route, I would have, I just don't think it would have surfaced as fast as it did, just because of all the accessibility. At 18, most of my friends are looking for fake IDs, and I'm being paid to party and travel the world.
Yeah.
And entitlement, ego, I'm a firm believer. I had an overinflated ego with an underestimated sense of self-worth, and it just kept feeding my disease and my addiction of denial.
What are you most ashamed of from your life or from that time?
I don't want to sound, narcissistic or egotistical or anything. I mean, but I'm a firm believer everything happens for a reason, and I really wouldn't take anything back because it's shaped me into the person that I am today. There's obviously things I wish I wouldn't have done, but to go back and really look at it, I mean, I'm pretty happy with where I've become today, and it's given me a platform to really speak on that. There's a lot of things I would take back if I could, but in reality, it's put me to where I'm at. So I mean,
right.
I wouldn't really take anything back.
So I'm sure there's a lot of good things about you that no one talks about. What are they?
Well, I think in the last, there's been a major transformation in the last 4 years. So I mean, it's amazing to see the notoriety I have for the positive I've been doing lately. There's very rarely negative things. There is no negative things that come out anymore. It's the blessing of working in a solid program for me and being sober. But in today's light, I mean, there's a lot of, I help a lot of people on a daily basis, and I give back. There's nothing more self-gratifying. So,
who has been your biggest positive influence throughout this process?
I mean, through God, For sure, I had definitely a spiritual awakening, but I mean, my family was a big role in the support of that, and definitely Dr. Drew, Bob Forrest, a good friend of mine, Paul Alexander, and a gentleman by the name of Mike Netherton were the key supporters in getting me through this. It's nearly impossible to do this alone.
So how's your life different now? How do you manage that? So you said you had all this accessibility, and I'm sure you still have it. How do you manage your lifestyle in order to not be able to fall back into those old habits?
Well, it's a good question. The thing that I've focused on is I've learned how to do everything wrong. So I look at it, and I've had an amazing life experience. Dr. Drew told me the best thing that I think I've ever learned. He goes, some people have old souls. He goes, you've lived one. And to look at that, I've gained a lot of knowledge, on how to do the right and wrong thing. But I mean, I had to surrender to my disease and addiction of alcoholism and drug addiction. And when I did that, my life was able to transform. It was really hard when you're in the depths of the addiction part.
So do you think you are a different person today than you were back then? Do you have a different view towards your life?
I have a totally different view. I mean, it's not Jason's world anymore. It's for me, it's to get out and help others. I am not self-centered and self-seeking. I really focus on being there for other people, especially I work in the field of addiction and recovery and stuff. Not for money, not for any of that. It's because I suffered from it. My disease almost took me to not contemplating but attempting suicide, and now I remember, like I was saying, with that whole what society depicts as amazing, I had all that stuff, and I was still the person that didn't want to be around.
What do you think you learned about yourself throughout your recovery process?
I learned a lot. I learned that I had a lot of growing up to do. I was like a little kid still.
Well, I mean, you were young. You were what, in your 18, 20s?
Yeah, and I mean, as you're starting to develop into your adulthood, especially when you're starting to consume and drink like I did emotionally, and I just stopped developing at like 15, 16 years old, basically, because that's when I really started to dive into things. So I had a lot of growing up to do. I was a young kid that basically went through so many different life experiences that probably weren't most kids aren't supposed to experience, and so I had a lot of soul searching to do, and I had a lot of learning to do.
You think I interviewed Donald Morgan a while ago, and he said that the biggest change in his life has been his attitude. He used to wake up every day thinking today's going to be a crappy day, like today's going to suck, and today did suck. And then he said, but now I wake up every day thinking today's going to be a good day, and today is a good day. So he really attributes his attitude to his success and happiness. Would you agree with that?
100%. I wake up every morning. I do a gratitude list. There's so much to be grateful for. I mean, we can get in our heads and point out negative things, but I mean, if you focus on negative, you're going to get negative, and if you focus on positive, you're going to get positive. So I mean, I start my day off by morning meditation. I do my daily little reading. I pray, and then I make a gratitude list, and it's worked pretty well.
Gratitude list. What do you hope to accomplish now with your life?
I hope to my goal is to help as many people as I can. Like I said, I don't work in the field of addiction or, recovery for the money. There's just nothing more self-gratifying than giving back, and I've been put in a position today to utilize the platform I have to raise awareness and to try to get that word out there. If I'm helping one person, it's better than none. Do you think it's also part of your recovery process and being able to stay sober and having that purpose? Well, and I think I'll give you the things I do to stay sober.
Yeah.
I have my foundation, which is the most important. You're a product of your environment. I surround myself.
What's your foundation? Can you explain that a little?
A core group of guys, basically, that we're very open and honest with each other. We keep each other accountable. We have basically every week we have an accountability group where we actually can sit down and go over the things that we're trying to focus on our lives to better. And we're there to call each other out, because we see sometimes it's not that we're even trying to make up excuses or lie about what we're doing. Sometimes we're forgetful, and it's like, hey, for example, a guy wanted to work on his diet, and we have it's a 3 thing. It's excellent, good, or poor. and he said he was doing good that week, and he had went to the fair, and he had a lot of junk food, and we called him out. So, I mean, it's simple stuff like that where it's like he wasn't trying to lie about it, but it's just like to keep us honest. And so I mean, the foundation, just having that core group of guys. You know, I go to meetings. I work the steps of recovery, and you know, I'm of service. Off track.
So it's a job in itself every day. It's a continuous process.
It is. You have to hold myself. I have to hold myself accountable.
Yeah.
Those guys around you and the core group to make sure you know to really do that. And that's something that, and it's worked for me. I'm not saying it's going to work for everybody. That's something it's worked for me, and that was what the advice I was given. I took it. The best advice I was ever given was to surrender and be willing to take guidance and stop making it Jason's way.
Who gave you that advice?
Dr. Drew. So as soon as I did that, because look at every time I tried to put my will in front of things, I always ended up in the same situation I was in or even worse. Yeah. So clearly I wasn't in a spot where I could make decisions for myself, and I had to really understand that. And it's hard when you're dampering somebody's ego. It's not easy to deal with.
I can imagine. Yeah.
So, but the best thing I've ever done is to get that humbling experience and to really be able to surrender, take guidance, and today I've never been happier.
Thank you for taking the time to talk with me today.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. It was a pleasure.
Congratulations for everything you've done. I'm so happy that you're trying to help other people, and I really hope you can stay on this right track.
Thank you very much.